So here we're going to create our comment, and what we'd like to be able to do is actually have it send an email to the author when the comment is created, but that logic doesn't currently exist. So what I was thinking, Kyle, we could do is I'll first have you create the test, and then we'll fulfill it afterwards. We'll actually fill out all the logic. So we'll actually put the send email logic right here. And we'll bounce over to our unit test area. I'll do that right here. And go ahead and let's do this.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll start off with the test that will allow us to send an email when we create a comment, send it to the original Dimecast author. And this being your computer, I'm familiar with the shortcuts you've got created, so I'm going to go with the...
There is a shortcut T-stub if you do want to use that in the future.
Okay. Now the test naming convention that I've adopted, and I'm not totally wedded to it, but I do like it, should send email to author when comment created.
So you follow the more of the underscore concept. Okay.
Yeah, I like that because I find it easier to read, and this is kind of a facetious argument for me because I don't take advantage of it. But there are tools out there that'll strip out the underscores when you're creating reports on this. If you want to use a tool to create reports based on the test, it's a lot easier, and I find it easier to find the test that I want, or when I'm looking through a report of all the tests. One downside I found with it is that you can't navigate as easily with a ReSharper, how you type in sort of the Pascal casing, the initial capital letters of a method.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something I've learned to live without.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the way that I generally do this is I start with, looks like the enter's adding 2 enters instead of 1 here, but we'll work around that. I'll start with the actual thing that I want to test, and I'll create that first. So what we want, where we're putting this code, is in the episode service.
Yes.
Okay? So what we need is an actual episode service, and we'll pass in our episode repository and our sponsor repository, because we need both of those.
Now, since we're getting information from an author, we're going to need to extend this interface, or this contract on our object. So
yeah, we're going to need some more stuff here. And I'm not quite sure. Now, I have an idea of what I'm going to use, but I'm not quite sure what it is yet. So let's just leave it as it is now. And we'll be using the new arrange, act, assert terminology, methodology on RhinoMox here. So we've created the episodes that we needed. Of course, we need to create our stub or our mock objects there. Let's not do that just yet. We want to create a comment. That's the actual method that we're going to be calling. Create comment. And that requires comment. Okay?
Makes sense.
Now, what do we want to happen when we create a comment? Well, the specific thing that we're testing here is that we want an email to be sent to the author. Okay, well, that sort of implies that we need to have some sort of email service. So let's say email service, and we're going to assert what's called. I'm doing this without IntelliSense, so I may have to come back to it.
Oh, you're a real Rhino Jedi, aren't you?
Oh, gosh. We'll see how far we get here. We're going to assert that it was called, and this requires some knowledge of the syntax here, the service. Trying to be too helpful here.
Yeah, I find that's very annoying with Lambdas. I love them, but the IntelliSense likes to try to shove other letters into it for you.
Okay.
We want probably call this send email.
Send email. Sure. That sounds good to me. Now, what do we need to pass into the send email? What makes sense here?
Well, an author doesn't have an email address, so
an email address.
I'm thinking email address. And we know we want to send information based on the comment that was posted. So I would say for simplicity's sake, we just send the comment object in.
Yeah, we've got some options here. We could pass in, if we wanted to make this kind of a dumb generic service, we could pass in the email address, the message that we want to send, who it's from, and all that. For now, I think I agree with you. Let's put in the actual comment and have the email service smart enough to get that information out. Later on, we may need some other sort of emailing service that does need to be more generic, but we can refactor at that point. So we've just asserted that was called, and we've made the decision that we're going to have a send email address or a send email method with an email address and a comment as its parameter. So this is essentially the test. Everything else that we need to do to get this working is, infrastructure. So let's do that right now. I need some mock.
And it's iEpisode repository.
iEpisode. And we should note here that I'm actually not familiar with this code, so that should be taken into account, not for me not knowing variable names, but to show that you don't really need to have intimate knowledge of the code when you're doing this sort of thing. So iEpisode repository, created that. And it's iSponsor repository?
Yes. iSponsor repository, yep. Now it looks like we're going to need something to send our email, so our email service.
You betcha.
So
we said we're going to need an email service here somewhere. So let's create that here. And there's a couple of things we'll need to do with that.
And that's actually a new service that isn't part of the current code base. So we'll have to make sure we go back and do that later. Create that.
Yep. Email. Nice that it's suggesting names I've already used here. Now, as you mentioned, we don't have this email service, and we are going to need to provide it to the episode service here as well.
There's one other thing that we need to add for this as well, Kyle. We need to gather the author information before we can actually grab their email address and send it off. So that's something we're going to have to add to this as well. So let's go ahead and create a new author.
That's something that we forgot to do here, is that we're going to need to send some information. We've got the information about the comment that we want to send to the author, but where are we getting this email address from?
Yeah.
You're absolutely right there. So, how's that look?
That's the one we need.
And we'll put that on to the end here. The reason we're going to need that is we need to get this email address from somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay?
Makes sense?
So, we've created our episodes. Let's put that, I'll just put it here for now. The author, repository. you want to use expect here?
We can use expect or stub. With the AAA syntax, I've been going more with stub when I want to return values.
There's been some conversations around that. Stub is, we're going to use stub here because we're not actually testing the author repository. We're just saying we're going to get this email address back from the author repository, but that's not an explicit expectation. We're just calling this method because we need to get an email address back. So I'm going to use that. Okay, and what are we going to call this method here?
Well, fetch author, if you look at the signature, it requires an author ID, and I don't think we have that yet. So we probably want to go ahead and create a new method. Maybe fetch author by episode or for episode, because the only thing we'll have at this point is the episode ID.
Okay, so fetch author by episode. And we'll have from the comment the episode ID?
Yeah, I believe we do. I believe it's called episode ID.
Should probably create the comment and that'll help us out here. Okay. Let's create the comment above here. It's not called comment. What is
cast episode comment. There you go.
Cast. And it doesn't take any parameters? Excellent.
Nope, it's just a basically a dumb POCO or a dumb DTO.
All right, our comment's all filled in there. Okay, so we're going to expect a stub from the author, from fetch author by episode is going to return us.
We have I think it's a cast author ID, cast author object, but I'm not 100% positive on the name. I'd have to look.
Okay.
But we want to return some kind of author entity.
Yeah, we'll just return the author here. And author. We want to create a new author or just stub it out here? Let's say we want to create it.
Just create new, and that's one thing I really haven't done is I don't tend to stub out my entities.
Yeah,
I can just provide values directly.
So is that what our fetch author by episode ID is going to return, do you think?
I believe it will, yes.
Yeah.
You can use the constructor assignment, or not constructor, property assignment syntax to assign.
I would do that. I'm going to forego it because it's a shared view here. Email address. Okay. And last thing we need is an actual email address here. And this doesn't really matter.
I like your moo cow. I normally do foo at foo.
Yeah. Everything else here except for this assert is relatively accounted for. Assert was called. Oh, that's right. Okay, now that we've got the email address set here, everything else here is stuff that we'll need to actually implement to get this to work. We've got assert was called, which Derik informs me is because we haven't actually implemented the email service. Once we do that, then that compiler error, supposed compiler error, will go away. But this is the entirety of the test. Now, if you think back to where I said this is the guts of the test, there's a whole lot of setup here in order to get this, and we made a lot of decisions along the way, which is part of the good thing, I think, about TDD. So I think that's going to wrap it up